Yep, that's right, I failed, and that's fine. Today I'm going to tell my boring story about how I tried to make a game this summer. To give a brief summary, earlier this summer I was planning on starting my so-called indie game dev career, and I was super excited about making games and devlogs, and coincidentally during this time there was this game jam planned from Pirate Software. Perfect, I said, I can start with that since it's going to be a smaller game because everyone says that starting with your big game idea is, well, not a good idea. So my plan in this whole thing, even months before the game jam, was to use Monogame to develop my own game engine and make games with it. Because I already have a decent amount of experience with C# and I did some research, I decided that already existing engines like Godot, Unity or Unreal are not going to satisfy me, because I want to go deeper into the art of making games. Even though I know it's a lot harder to do that. A bit before the game jam, I played around with setting up a project and trying different things. I also had to find a way to build the project for web, which is not supported by the official Monogame library, so I used a fork of Monogame called KNI to create my web build. The team was revealed, or rather voted in a poll during a Pirate Software stream on Twitch right before the game jam started. The result of the poll was Shadows and Alchemy, which were actually two different teams combined. At first I was a bit disappointed, but then I went right to brainstorming, and after a bit of going back and forth on ideas, I actually came up with something that was what I still think is a cool game concept. The game I was going to make was a tower defense game where you have to protect the core of magic energy from enemies using two different types of towers. The first type is a tower that emits light, and the second kind of tower is a gem tower that generates different elemental shadows on the ground which give damage and different status effects to the enemies. And the main mechanics of the game were that you would use light towers to cast shadows from the gem towers, and you could overlap the shadows in order to create new elements that give more damage and more special debuffs. So let's say you would take a water shadow and overlap it with an air shadow, and you would get an ice shadow, which would slow the enemies. This way I was going to have 4 different elemental towers which combined could create a total of 10 different shadow zones, all with unique effects. The 4 main elements would be fire, water, air and earth, and the combinations were fire and water to create steam, fire and air to create lightning, fire and earth to create lava, water and air to create ice, water and earth to create mud, and air and earth to create dust. I was going to decide later on what effect each shadow would give, but unfortunately I didn't get far enough for that. Looking back at it, trying to make my own game engine during a game jam wasn't that great of an idea because of the time constraints. I probably would have gotten further without trying that. Not that it would have mattered because I missed the deadline anyway, but still I continued to work on the game because I wanted to make a video about it eventually. And well, I still didn't change my mind about making my own game engine. Before I started working on the game, I was playing around with some physics simulations as well as trying to build my own entity component system at the same time. It wasn't great, but it was something, so I managed to make some cool stuff. After that, I got started on the game by vomiting some code to make a simple tiling system so that the player can distinguish between the different zones of the game. You had your area where you could place towers with the core in the center and the rest from where the enemies would be coming. Then I made a simple shop UI with some simple towers, which looked awful if you ask me, but they did the job as placeholder art. You could pick towers from the so-called shop, but that's about it. And as you can see, I also made a simple FPS and UPS counter along with a health bar for the core tower. Because I was making my own entity component system, everything was tying somewhat nicely together despite my awful code that I wrote. After that, I tried to better optimize the engine for no apparent reason, and then I got tower placing done. But well, you could place towers anywhere you wanted, so the next step was to implement the tower placing area as well as collision detections with other towers, which is what I did. I also made it possible so you could pick up towers from the ground and then move them around, because back then I was thinking that I could make it difficult to gain money to buy new towers. So you would have to keep moving towers around and combine shadows together. Finally, I made a stream where I fixed some other things, added tower rotation and added health bars to the rest of the towers. And that's about actually what I managed to do before life and procrastination got in the way. But since I actually managed to make a build for web, I do have the game on itch.io, and you can try it. But the last uploaded version of it is where I was playing around with entities and physics. Oh well, might as well update it now. So what's the conclusion? Well, I'm not going to continue working on the game, so I leave it as a failure and learn from it. And to be honest, I'm not even motivated to work on it anymore, so there's that. I will, however, try to start a new project soon and work on that. Perhaps I could throw some devlogs here and there and see what comes of it. For now, I do have my new Discord bot as a side project, and I even made my own C# library that I published on Nugget since I stopped working on the game. Back when I started, version 3.8.2 of Monogame wasn't even released yet, so I was stuck with building the project myself, but since then, the open source work on Monogame has picked up and I'm excited to try the new version. And hopefully, life won't get in the way, and neither will I get in my own way by procrastinating. But who knows, only time can tell. Anyways, that's it for today. If you've ever failed a project yourself, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what was your project and why did it fail. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.